Hello there, Star Wars fans. What characters would you like to see in The Mandalorian? I discussed that question with Andy of Star Wars and Rebels Transmission and Nick of the Star Wars General YouTube channel. But first, I want to say I'm Mike and welcome back to Star Wars Speculation, where we love serious speculation but don't take it too seriously. So, in this extended discussion with Andy and Nick, we discuss characters such as Sabine, Ezra, Finn Rao, and much more. All right, so let's get right into it here. And the first character we have, Andy's going to give to us. Andy, who would you like to see in The Mandalorian?
Okay, so I thought, as it's called The Mandalorian, we should probably get some Mandalorian characters in this show. So I thought I'd start off with those. My first idea would be to have Bo-Katan in this series, because we know from at least from where Rebels left off, so as far as we're aware, she's still the leader of the Mandalorians. She has the Darksaber. She has a lot of the clans behind her. So it'd be a bit odd if we didn't get any mention of that character at all. Plus, I'm sure the actress, I'm forgetting her name, Katie Sackhoff, would be up for playing her. So I think like she's probably about the right age and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'd really like to see Bo-Katan in this series, especially if we could get the live action version of the Darksaber as well.
Yeah, I think that would be, just absolutely amazing, especially if we get the voice actor acting. That would be really cool. We would also, it just like you said, it makes sense. I was doing some predictions in my last video. There, it was a community video, and one of the commenters, Medieval Man 9, talked about how the Mandalorian could actually be, sent out by Bo-Katan to sort of keep, he could be like this sort of Wild West sheriff that's going out lawmen, trying to keep order in the unrest that is obviously happening in the Outer Rim after the fall of the Empire. So
yeah,
I thought that was an interesting concept.
The only thing that's sort of confusing me about the description at the moment is that this guy is apparently inspired by the Fett's, Boba and Jango, who, at the moment in canon, it's sort of a bit, do we know if they were actually Mandalorian or not? It's been said in the Clone Wars that they weren't, and it has been said outside of that they weren't as well. So I'm a little bit confused by that at the moment, but that's a cool idea. I do like that idea.
Yeah, I was listening to the Force Center podcast, and apparently they said that Favreau actually put that up on his Instagram. I think like the whole description without checking with the story group at all.
Oh, really?
So I guess, yeah. Well, I guess with the leaks that were coming out, that he just sort of, I guess he sort of jumped the gun to try and get some official thoughts out there. But what do you think about Finn Rao, Bo-Katan, spoiler, Bo-Katan, Nick, showing up in The Mandalorian?
I mean, it could be possible because with the way that Rebels ended, she is still part of Mandalore and she's got the Darksaber now, as Andy did mention. So it'd be kind of cool for Bo-Katan to send out these people to control the Outer Rim, maybe to help people in need who actually need assistance, and maybe this single Mandalorian who are seen in the live action Mandalorian TV show is sort of like the protector of Tatooine, because the image that we did get from Favreau is definitely on Tatooine in the Outer Rim. So maybe he's been sent there to protect the citizens, or he's on a bounty mission, or capture a bounty for Bo-Katan. That would be kind of cool to see, but it's definitely possible that Bo-Katan will actually show up at some point.
Yeah, if he actually did go to Tatooine, it was hinted in the Aftermath novels, or it was really outright said in the Aftermath. I guess it was hinted that a lawman is actually using Boba Fett's armor. He found it in these he brought it from the Jawas. So it'd be kind of interesting if this guy sort of ran into him, and the general audience is going to be like, "Oh, this is Boba Fett," but actually turns out to be this other guy who's now wearing Boba Fett's armor. So.
And another thing as well that was pointed out by Jon Favreau, that he shared an image of the Star Wars Holiday Special Boba Fett weapon that was shown. So it's definitely going to have ties to that, maybe.
Yeah, and if this new guy is actually using that sort of weapon from the old holiday special. That would be kind of a cool kind of sort of thing that they were doing with with this new Boba Fett. Obviously he's not Boba Fett, but this new guy who's wearing his armor. That he would actually appear the way a little bit similar to the way Boba Fett originally appeared back in that old sort of animated sequence from the holiday special.
All right, well, why don't we move on to Nick, your number one of the characters you'd like to see show up in The Mandalorian?
My personally favorite number one is definitely Sabine. Now, we know that Sabine is on her way to find Ezra at the end of Star Wars Rebels Season 4, and we really don't know anything about the history after Star Wars Rebels Season 4 of Sabine. We know that she was protecting Lothal after Return of the Jedi, so it could possibly that she can still show up. Maybe she's quite old now, maybe in her 40s or 50s, and we'll see her, maybe this Mandalorian comes for her to help. And it'll just be interesting to explore more Sabine's character because, she's quite interesting to come from a family that, who wasn't accepting her after what she did to her people, but then finally accept her back as family. So it'll just be really interesting to see and find out what Sabine is really up to after when she found Ezra.
Yeah, that's interesting. Remember, the timeline is only 9 years after the Return of the Jedi, so she wouldn't be too much older.
Yeah,
I'd say.
Yeah. Well, I think from what I've heard. I mean, this might be wrong, but I believe I heard it was 7 years after A New Hope. It was first reported as 7 years after Return of the Jedi. It was actually 7 years after A New Hope. You only put it a few years after Return of the Jedi. So Sabine wouldn't be that old, compared to where we last saw her in the season 4 epilogue. She'd only be in her sort of 20s, I imagine. So
true. Yeah,
cool. And I mean, she may actually be off searching for Ezra at this point, or I mean, it's really not defined exactly when her and Ahsoka leave, so we could see her show up. Looking at the next character here, I really like the idea of the Mandalorian going to Lothal. Lothal's in the Outer Rim.
Mm-hmm.
That was mentioned by Favreau, as that's where the Mandalorian is. So I just think it would be awesome to see a live action Lothal. And I thought one of the characters that we saw introduced in season 2 and then more of in season 4 of Star Wars Rebels, Jaikal, basically Ezra's buddy from the Imperial Academy, and then later part of the Rebels on Lothal. It'd be really interesting to see him in a leadership role, perhaps on Lothal, and maybe some sort of politician. Obviously he'd probably be pretty popular with the locals being part of that rebel group, and probably one of the few that actually stuck around. So yeah, I just think really the whole idea of having Jaikal in the show is to get the Mandalorian to Lothal. I think that's really what I want, but I'm mentioning his name because that's what we're talking about. So
yeah, just to get Lothal in the series out, that'd be great. Yeah. I think Jaikal, I think he was actually from quite a well-off family, so on Lothal, so it kind of makes sense that maybe he would sort of be quite in a high up position, especially if he was part of the Lothal resistance post Return of the Jedi. I assume Lothal became part of the New Republic, so yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, and we also know that Dave Filoni is actually directing 2 episodes. He's directing episode 1 and also episode 5. So it's going to be kind of cool to see if any of his Star Wars Rebels characters will be in the live action show, because we know that from what you said in your videos, Mike, that he doesn't want anyone to touch these Rebels characters or any of his characters because he has developed them well enough for him to actually create their own story separately compared to the Mandalorian TV show. So it could be possible that he's finally accepted Finn Rao to actually put in some of his Rebels characters into the show.
Yeah, I mean that gun that we see that Favreau showed off on his Instagram there, it definitely looks like a sniper rifle or something, something that he'd be using from long range, and then maybe the tip is more for fighting close range or something, or hand-to-hand combat, that sort of thing, which we see a lot of
in the holiday special. It was shown that it was a sniper as well, and also that it was
Okay.
a attack weapon. So if you like just go back, and it's near the end of the holiday special, I think they showed it. I can't quite remember because I just watched it on YouTube just a wee bit of it. Then I kind of went off it because that's when Boba Fett was first introduced into the holiday special, and we just saw him with that weapon. So it's kind of cool how they're taking parts from
Yeah.
Legends and bringing it into canon. It still shows that Lucasfilm is caring about Legends still.
Yeah, good point. Good point. I was gonna say he maybe if he's more of a bounty hunter than maybe somebody sent out by Bo-Katan, he could be trying to assassinate Jakal. That would make for an interesting story. Anyway, let's move on to your number two there, Andy.
Yeah, well, surprising no one probably. My number two is Fen Rao. Reason being is because he's quite a prominent Mandalorian. The actor who played him, I can't remember his name, but he is a live action actor. I believe he was in I think it was in the Gladiator TV series or something like that. Um, I think it was him, and along with the guy who, along with another actor who was in Rebels as well. So I think he could actually play Fen Rao in live action. And also, I would just like to see Fen Rao and the Protectors come back, and to see those guys in live action would be great. I think to see the Protectors kind of reformed after the Imperial Super Commandos killed them all. Bar
Yeah,
Fen Rao.
yeah, I'd love that actually. You know, what sticks out to me is that Fen Rao's role in Star Wars Rebels was really to teach us quite a bit, at least for a few episodes, was to teach us about Mandalorian culture and to really help bring along Sabine. And it would be very interesting. I mean, we are we going to get backstory about the Mandalorian right away, or is it going to be a bit more of a mystery? And that type of character, he could be sort of at the beginning telling the story of this Mandalorian that maybe was of high prestige within the culture, and then maybe uh, something happened, and now he's turned bounty hunter, or he's this sort of wandering vagabond. That'd be kind of interesting. What do you think about Finn Rao, Nick?
I mean, it's possible. It's possibly that he could appear. I would like to see that, and it's just really cool to see that character in live action because we really never got much of a protectors in Star Wars Rebels that much. We just hear a wee bit about them, and it was only Finn Rao that we really saw of the protectors. But if you put it this way, we can explore more of the Mandalorian culture, each different faction in this live action
Yeah,
show.
absolutely. Absolutely. So let's move on then, Nick, to your number two.
Well, for me, it's definitely Ezra. Now, we know that Ezra is still missing at this point after Return of the Jedi. We really don't know if he's alive or dead, but I definitely think he's alive. That Sabine official actually eventually found him somewhere, maybe in the Outer Rim, or even on Batuu. We never know, but it's just interesting to see this Jedi character coming into a live action TV show. Like from what we know from Rebels, that Ezra maybe has grown up, he's mastered everything that he's learned about the Force, and he could probably teach this to this new Mandalorian on how to actually fight, like what he did with Sabine. Maybe that could be a possibility, but maybe it's just an Easter egg that we'll have in a live action
Yeah, I
Mandalorian of
think if Ezra's
Ezra.
going to show up, it's definitely going to be later in the season or later seasons. It wouldn't be right away, right? But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah,
Or even at the end, just like Ahsoka Tano did in Rebels season one, and that like spiked up the
yeah. I
ratings
mean,
for
the
the
other
show.
thing is there too is then if we do get that animation series that we all want with Ahsoka, Ezra, and Sabine, the search for Ezra, maybe Thrawn's in there as well. Then we just know that Ezra is going to survive all of that, right? So it sort of takes a little bit away there, but I like the idea. I think I did a video once on how Ezra after Lothal or after Star Wars Rebels might have been hiding out on Mandalore, sort of Sabine maybe had given him some family armor and that sort of thing, and he was hiding out. But anyway, that doesn't really connect with this. It's just it's always fun to reminisce. Andy, what do you think about Ezra
Mm-hmm.
being in the show?
Yeah, I think. Well, Dave has said that Ezra and the Thrawn are both alive, so we do know that for sure. I am still. I think there are some definite opportunities to bring Ezra or Sabine into the Mandalorian, especially with Dave as an executive producer and episodic director. But I also feel like I'd rather wait for their own series so that we can get their own story rather than them being more of a cameo or just kind of placed into this series and not necessarily because obviously this series is about this Mandalorian character. It's his story. It's not going to be Ezra, Sabine, or Thrawn's story. So I'd much prefer to get Ezra, Sabine, and Thrawn's story in their own series so we can kind of explore that fully. And also, I wouldn't want to go. Obviously, we do know Ezra and Thrawn are alive, but we don't know where they are. We don't know what they've been up to, and I'd prefer those sort of things being kept for their own series. Which I'm still of the opinion once season 7 of Clone Wars is done, we're going to start hearing about that series.
Yeah, I'd bet big money on it as well. And talking about cameos, I would love to see Quinlan Vos in this series as well. We still don't know. Like, this is one of those Jedi. He may show up in the Vader comic. There's been lots of rumors about that. In fact, he may have. You guys have no. I'm pretty sure he hasn't, but
he hasn't. No.
I mean, it's been hinted at because if I think in one of the issues it shows all the Jedi who are still alive and need hunted down, and one of those names were Quinlan Vos. So he is still yet to appear in the Vader comic, I think. Anyway,
I'm behind on my comics, unfortunately. But yeah, Quinlan Vos would be very interesting to see. Obviously, he'd be a little bit older here. But he, if this does go a little more of the CD, the rumors are that this is connected to sort of that 1313. If it goes more that way and doesn't have quite the connection we're thinking about to Mandalore, there still could be that connection, I suppose. But Quinlan Vos is probably someone who is doing side jobs, might be a bounty hunter himself for survival, and it'd be really interesting to just see a Jedi in this. And it does seem like Lucasfilm is trying to move away from the Jedi and produce content that doesn't involve the Jedi, which I think is a shame. A lot of people are for that, and a lot of people, when it comes to Star Wars, they just think of the Jedi. So it'd be interesting if we could get one in the series. Is it necessary? No, I don't think so. But Andy, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I really like that idea. It was very heavily rumored that Quinlan Vos was going to be a main character in the old Underworld TV series that George Lucas was developing. That's one of the big reasons why Quinlan Vos was introduced in the Clone Wars series. And he was also obviously going to have some big episodes with Asajj Ventress, which of course got released in novel form. We do know he survived Order 66. He's also very in touch with the sort of Star Wars underworld. So he'd have been, if they didn't get him in Order 66, which they didn't, he could have disappeared very, very well into the underworld. So I do think there's some stories to be told in the Imperial era, possibly with Darth Maul. Who knows? That would be cool. But I would definitely like to see him show up. Maybe he sort of, at some point during the Imperial era, he kind of put his Jedi past behind him and he became, a full-time smuggler, or I can't see him being a bounty hunter as such, but, definitely a job within the underworld era, smuggler, something like that, just to kind of get by. And I could see him show up sort of post Return of the Jedi. It would explain, him not being or not considering himself a Jedi, that wouldn't conflict with what Yoda said in Return of the Jedi. But then if he starts to reclaim his Jedi his Jedi past in this series, and we get to see him wield a lightsaber, use the Force, that sort of thing, I think that would be cool. I'm not sure how it would tie into the Mandalorian story. Obviously, we know so little about the story. There's nothing to say they can't. So yeah, I'm definitely interested in it, in that idea.
Cool. Yeah, awesome. What do you think, Nick?
I mean, it's definitely possible because we know that he survived the course, and we could be possibly playing Quinlan Vos in the new Jedi Fallen Order game because we know that it's centered around the Jedi Padawan. Well, it could not be him, but maybe he'll pop up in the game. It's possible, but I definitely think we'll see Quinlan Vos again at some point.
Yeah, he's got to, like, that needs to be resolved for sure. I mean, he's a fairly popular character. Is it going to be in the Darth Vader comic? I think he's too big of a character to be resolved in a comic, like his storyline. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, although he is originally a comic book character, George Lucas actually asked the guys at Dark Horse. He was originally going to die in Order 66, and that was going to be told in the Republic comic book series. But George actually sent a request for them not to do that, and to make sure that he survived. And obviously, as I say, that was heavily rumored was because George was going to use him in the Underworld TV series. So it would be a bit weird if they just brought him into the Vader comic, considering there's only a few issues left now of the Vader comic. They're in their final arc, to bring him in just to kill him off. I just can't quite see that happening.
Yeah, well, it's definitely going to be interesting. There's lots of great characters that could show up in The Mandalorian. Are there any final thoughts that you have there, Andy, on maybe any other characters or anything else you want to say about the characters we've discussed so far?
No, I think that's kind of it for me. There's definitely a lot of characters that could show up in this series, so I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, I think that's everything. There's so little release so far. I think there's only so far you can take the speculation at this point.
That's right. Which we love to do here at Star Wars Speculation. Nick, any final speculation for you?
Don't really know. I mean, I'm just happy with the whole Mandalorian TV series that we're actually getting one. So yeah.
Awesome. So where can the people find you there, Nick, online?
Well, you can follow me on Twitter at @officialbossk, and I sometimes do YouTube, but not a lot anymore. I'm just normally active on Twitter, so just follow me on Twitter.
Awesome. And Andy?
Yeah, you follow me on Twitter at RebelTK421, or you can follow me on Facebook on my Facebook page of Rebel Transmission.
Yeah, awesome, guys. These guys definitely put out some great content on social media, so please follow them. Their links will be down in the description as well as the comments. I want to say a big thank you to Andy and Nick for helping me out with this discussion. As I've mentioned a few times on social media and the channel, this month has been extremely busy, but things should be getting back to normal on the channel by at least November. Thank you to all of those of you who have continued to support the channel. And for the question of the day today, we're just going to talk about the characters you want to see in The Mandalorian. Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching Star Wars Speculation, and may the Force be with you.